What if I told you that the 2024 elections might bring a familiar face back into the White House? Yes, you've guessed it right. We're talking about Donald Trump. In the early days of 2023, the political landscape was shaken up when former President Donald Trump made a significant announcement. He was throwing his hat back in the ring, announcing his candidacy for the 2024 Republican primaries. As you can imagine, this news stirred up quite a storm. Trump's announcement was like a lightning bolt, jolting both the public and the media. Some were thrilled, others not so much. But regardless of where you stood, one thing was clear. The political landscape was about to get a whole lot more interesting. On one side, there was extreme excitement, especially among his loyal base. His supporters, many of whom had been eagerly awaiting his return to the political arena, were ecstatic. They saw in Trump a leader who prioritized their concerns, who championed the America First agenda, and who was not afraid to shake things up. To them, Trump's announcement was a glimmer of hope, a promise of a return to the policies they believed in. On the other side, there was apprehension and even outright criticism. Trump's detractors, remembering his contentious first term, were wary. They remembered the controversies, the legal battles, and the polarized nation. To them, Trump's announcement was a cause for concern, a signal that the divisions of the past might be dredged up once again. But whether you were a supporter or a critic, one thing was undeniable. Trump's announcement was a game changer. It set the stage for a primary season that promised to be both contentious and exciting. The political world was abuzz with speculation, predictions, and analyses. With his announcement, the stage was set for a contentious and exciting primary season. As the snow melted and spring arrived, so did the heat of the Republican primaries. The political landscape was abuzz with activity, as former President Donald Trump and Nikki Haley, a prominent Republican figure, locked horns in a bid for the party's nomination. Trump's campaign right from the start was a force to be reckoned with. His America First agenda, which had resonated with a substantial portion of the Republican electorate during his first term, once again proved to be a crowd puller. His rallies were marked by enthusiastic supporters, their faces painted with anticipation and fervor. His campaign strategy, a clever blend of nationalistic rhetoric and promises of economic prosperity, seemed to strike the right chord with his base. Meanwhile, Nikki Haley's entry into the race added a new dynamic. Known for her diplomatic acumen and moderate stance, Haley's campaign was a sharp contrast to Trump's. She promised a more inclusive and pragmatic approach, focusing on healing the divisions within the party and the country. However, despite her best efforts and an impressive political resume, she struggled to match the wave of support that Trump enjoyed. As the primaries progressed, Trump's victories in key states solidified his position as the frontrunner. The delegate count continued to tilt in his favor, and by the time summer rolled in, it was clear that Trump was dominating the race. His victories were not just wins, they were statements, clear indications of his undying popularity among a significant part of the Republican Party. On the other hand, Haley, despite her commendable efforts, found herself constantly playing catch-up. Her campaign, though promising, couldn't quite shake off Trump's overwhelming popularity. By summer, Trump had established a commanding lead, leaving his opponents in the dust. The Republican primaries had become a one-horse race, and Trump was galloping towards the finish line with an air of inevitability. Yet, as Trump's campaign gained momentum, so did the legal challenges against him. The shadows of the past began to lengthen, casting a cloud over the political landscape. Legal issues that had been dormant for a while resurfaced with renewed vigor. Investigations into Trump's business dealings, dormant since his first term in office, sprang back to life, taking a prominent spot in the daily news cycle. Meanwhile, the phantom of the 2020 election loomed large. Allegations of election interference, long dismissed by Trump and his supporters as a hoax, formed the basis of yet another legal battle. This time, the stakes were higher than ever, with the integrity of the democratic process hanging in the balance. The subpoenas began to fly as court hearings took center stage. The courtroom became a battleground, a place where the future of the Trump campaign was to be decided. But it wasn't just Trump's political future that was on trial. The very essence of American democracy, the sanctity of its electoral process, and the rule of law were all under scrutiny. Yet amidst this legal storm, Trump remained a formidable force. His campaign rallies were as vibrant and crowded as ever, his base as loyal and unwavering. For them, these legal battles were nothing more than political witch hunts, attempts by the establishment to bring down their champion. Trump, for his part, remained defiant. He dismissed the charges as politically motivated, the product of a system that he claimed was rigged against him. His refusal to back down, his determination to fight only served to galvanize his supporters. In the face of mounting legal pressure, Trump's resolve remained unbroken. His message was clear. He would not be deterred, he would not be silenced, and he would not be intimidated. He would fight, not just for himself, but for the millions of Americans who believed in him. Despite the mounting legal pressure, Trump remained unfazed, dismissing the charges as politically motivated. His battle cry echoed through the land, a rallying call to those who believed in his vision for America. The legal battles had begun, but the war was far from over. Facing an uphill battle, Nikki Haley made a tough decision. With the odds stacked against her, Haley, a prominent figure in the Republican Party, took a step back from the 2024 Republican primaries. She was up against a formidable opponent, a man whose influence over the Republican electorate was undeniable. Haley's campaign, although strong and full of promise, failed to gain the traction needed to surpass the behemoth that was Trump's support base. Her ideas resonated with many, but the wave of America First fervor that swept across the nation was a tide too strong to fight. The decision to concede wasn't an easy one. It was a move that signaled not just the end of her campaign, but also a shift in the dynamics of the race. But Haley, ever the pragmatist, recognized the need for unity within the party as the general elections loomed. In a move that surprised some and was expected by others, Haley endorsed Trump. She urged her supporters to rally behind the front-runner, emphasizing the need for a united front against the Democrats in the upcoming elections. Her endorsement added another feather to Trump's already decorated cap, solidifying his position as the party's favorite. The reaction to Haley's concession was a mix of disappointment and understanding. Many within the party had hoped for a more competitive race, a chance for fresh blood to invigorate the Republican ranks. But others recognized the political reality. Trump's hold over the party was unshakable. The public's response was equally mixed. Some applauded Haley's decision, seeing it as a pragmatic move in the face of a difficult situation. Others, however, saw it as a capitulation to Trump's dominance, a sign of the party's unwillingness to break away from the controversial figure. With Haley out of the race, Trump was the undisputed frontrunner for the Republican nomination. His path to the nomination seemed almost certain, but the road to the White House was still fraught with challenges. The legal battles were just beginning, and the general elections were yet to come. But for now, Trump was riding high on the wave of his primary victories, ready to face whatever came next. As the leaves began to fall, so did the gavel in courtrooms across the country. Autumn arrived with a surge in legal challenges for the Trump campaign. The former president found himself embroiled in a web of legal proceedings that threatened to overshadow his election bid. The charges were as diverse as they were serious, ranging from financial irregularities to allegations of election interference. One of the most pressing issues was Trump's business dealings. Accusations of financial irregularities, tax evasion, and fraudulent business practices were brought to the forefront. This was not just a minor hiccup for the campaign, it was a formidable obstacle that required a meticulous and strategic response. Simultaneously, allegations of election interference from 2020 were resurfacing. These claims, previously dismissed by many as unfounded, were now being scrutinized with renewed vigor. The question of whether there was any truth to these allegations was a ticking time bomb that threatened to explode at any moment, potentially causing significant damage to Trump's campaign. Despite these challenges, Trump was not one to back down. He dismissed the charges as politically motivated attacks designed to derail his campaign. He claimed they were nothing more than a desperate attempt by his opponents to undermine his chances of victory in the upcoming general election. With every public appearance, Trump reiterated his innocence. His defiance was noticeable, and his base, as unwavering as ever, rallied behind him. They echoed his sentiments, dismissing the legal battles as nothing more than political witch hunts. The legal battles were not just a test of Trump's resilience, but also a litmus test for his supporters' loyalty. Would they stand by him through the storm, or would they start to question their unwavering support? Only time would tell. In the face of mounting legal challenges, the Trump campaign continued its march towards the general election. The campaign rallies were as vibrant and energetic as ever, drawing massive crowds of fervently loyal supporters. The legal storm did little to dampen the spirits of the Trump base. Despite the legal storm surrounding him, Trump remained defiant, vowing to fight on. The stage was set for an intense and potentially historic election. With the legal battles raging on, Trump's campaign kicked into high gear. The final stages of his campaign were marked by a flurry of activity. Trump's rallies, reminiscent of his 2016 and 2020 campaigns, became the talk of the town. The size of the crowds, the enthusiasm of his supporters, and the fervor with which they chanted 4 more years, all pointed to a base that remained unshaken by the legal controversies surrounding their candidate. As always, Trump's messaging was a mix of nostalgia and promise. He harked back to the economic successes of his first term, reminding voters of the low unemployment rates, the booming stock market, and the tax cuts that benefited many. His promise to continue these policies was met with thunderous applause at each rally. His America First agenda, a cornerstone of his political philosophy, resonated with a significant section of the electorate, who felt heard and represented. Interestingly, Trump didn't shy away from addressing the legal battles that were headlining news. He dismissed the charges as politically motivated attempts to derail his campaign. His supporters, as if on cue, responded with boos and chants of fake news, underscoring their unwavering faith in their candidate. Public response to Trump's campaign was polarized. His supporters viewed him as the champion of the common man, fighting against the establishment. His detractors, on the other hand, saw him as a divisive figure, embroiled in legal controversies and unwilling to accept the legitimacy of the 2020 elections. As the election day loomed, Trump's potential second term hung in the balance, caught between the fervor of his supporters and the weight of his legal troubles. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. Would Trump's legal battles overshadow his political ambitions? The nation held its collective breath as the electoral battle drew to a close. The tension was palpable, the anticipation high. The stakes were not just about who would occupy the White House for the next 4 years, but about the direction the country would take. The election day dawned, bright and early. From the East Coast to the West, from the North to the South, polling stations were abuzz with activity. The issues at stake were numerous. Would the electorate endorse Trump's America First policy for a second term? Would they overlook the legal challenges and allegations that had been thrown his way? Or would they sway in favor of a new direction, a different leadership? The results trickled in, state by state, hour by hour. The tally seesawed, keeping the nation on its toes. The world watched, eyes glued to their screens, as the destiny of one of the most powerful nations hung in the balance. Meanwhile, the potential implications of a second Trump term were being hotly debated. His supporters argued that his return would mean the continuation of policies that put America's interests first. They believed he would further strengthen the economy and maintain a tough stance on immigration and foreign policy. Detractors, however, feared a further deepening of divisions within the country. They expressed concerns about the potential erosion of democratic norms and institutions, citing his refusal to accept the 2020 election results and the legal challenges surrounding him. As the day turned into night, the verdict was still unclear. The country seemed divided almost down the middle, reflecting the polarized political landscape. A clear winner was yet to emerge. The waiting game continued. The nation, and indeed the world, waited with bated breath to witness the final outcome. Whether one loves him or loathes him, Trump's potential return to the White House in 2024 is a scenario that cannot be ignored. Only time will tell what the future holds.